must make a confession. I have entered several times of the New Yorker cartoon contests. I never won. And I think for good reason, we fiction writers are not made to do that. And also, we fiction writers are not made to talk here. So I did put on, just in the spirit of seriously entertaining, I have an entertaining t-shirt for you. Thank you. So, a few months ago, I lost a dear friend, the great writer Edmund White. But don't worry, this is not going to be a sad story about death. Edmund used to have a friend who visited him twice a week because this friend was seeing two therapists, and both their offices were next to Edmund's apartment. Would the two therapists know each other's existence? I asked Edmund. And he said, no, it's very easy to keep the relationship separate. That reminds me of a hairdresser I used to go to in California. He was an older Chinese man. He liked to travel, and he liked to cut my hair and tell me his traveling stories. And one time I traveled too. I went back to Beijing to visit and had my hair done there. The next time I went to my hairdresser, he was enraged. He said, I could tell someone else has touched your head. I hated when other people mess up my work. So it is possible to have two therapists, but it's nearly impossible to have a secret hairdresser, as it did on the side. I've lived in America for nearly 30 years, and if I measure these 30 years with the hairdressers I've had, there are only a handful of them. So allow me to tell you a few hairdresser stories. A recent one, I used to go to a salon in Chelsea, and the salon was only half a block to Edmund's apartment. Every 8 weeks, I took the train in from Princeton to get my hair done. It was really an excuse to see Edmund. My hairdresser there was a man from Hong Kong. He cut my hair very carefully because he liked to tell me stories. He grew up in Hong Kong in the profession. Both his parents were hairdressers. This man also, this is a typical immigrant story, this man also had a master's degree in theology and worked as a curate for his local Brooklyn church. He considers himself, first of all, a philosopher, and second, a theologian, and third, a hairdresser. And he liked to discuss philosophy with me. So I would have an hour of haircut every 8 weeks for philosophical discussion. I really like him, but for one thing, he would not allow me to dye my hair. When I complained about my hair growing gray, he warned me not to be vain. So the salon closed down during the pandemic, and I rather miss him, my most philosophical and bossy hairdresser. The first hairdresser I had in America was a young woman in Iowa. She worked for this studio inside this big shop called JCPenney. I think some of you may remember JCPenney. The JCPenney in Iowa in 1990s really encapsulated America for me. So the first time I went to get my hair cut, it was apparent this young woman had never cut a Chinese head. And the haircut went quite wrong. And I could see her panic. She was using a blow dryer. She was using hot iron. And the haircut was really like one of those stories that had so many problems that no amount of revision or editing would save it. She felt very bad, and I felt very bad for her. So it's typical of me that I over-tipped her. Our relationship should have ended there. Except I have a character flaw. I don't like to write people off. Not real people, not fiction characters either. So I went back to her. The second haircut went even worse. I came out like a hedgehog. And the poor girl cried and begged me not to tip her. And that was the end of my relationship with her. And then I grew my hair long. We moved across the country to California. I went to this man who blamed me for not being exclusive with him. So I switched to another hairdresser, a woman who would lead to the story in the anthology. And if you haven't read the anthology, I would highly recommend it. Earlier this spring, I read one story a day, and I traveled the entire century in 3 months, and it was the most fabulous journey. So in any case, this woman, I named her Lily in my story. Lily also liked to cut my hair very carefully and slowly because she had stories to tell. She told me about her childhood in Vietnam. She told me about her migration to America, her marriage, her children. At some point, she started to talk about a childhood sweetheart. The war separated them. He stayed behind, and she moved to America. 30 years later, they got in touch and arranged a phone call. The man cried the entire time and couldn't speak a word. So his wife and his 3 daughters came on the phone to talk to Lily. His daughter said Lily was the love of their father's life. And he named all 3 daughters with a character of Lily's name in their names. And then the wife came out and said in their marriage bedroom, he kept a photo of Lily and the boy in Vietnam when they were teenage lovers. When Lily told me that, I couldn't quite deal with that. And then she showed me the pictures of herself and the boy. And I must say, I'm a coward in a way. I stopped going to her. Why? Because people tell you stories, and all of a sudden, it's too much. And she always wanted me to write her story. And I never wanted to do that because I thought that story was written by someone else named James Joyce. That story is called The Dead. So a few years later, I was having lunch with a few colleagues, and I told them a practice, I think it's still practicing in California. When my children were young, before they went to preschool, at the beginning of every semester, we would send in a care package. In the care package, we would have a stuffed animal, some snacks, a family photo, and a note from the parents to the children. And this care package was in case there was an earthquake. So in the note, we were going to tell our children, if mommy and daddy cannot pick you up, don't worry. Someone else is going to take good care of you, and all will be well. I told my colleagues about that practice, and I said, I always send in all the care package things, but I could never write that note. And a colleague said, well, you should really write that into a story. And I thought, yes, I will write that into a story. Because as it always happens, when you write one story, the story becomes another story. So in the end, the story was really not about preschool or children or parenting. It was about Libby and her teenage lover. I'm just going to take a look at time. I think I have time for one more hair cutting story. But this is a different kind of hairdresser. We have a small dog, and he's very cute. His name is Quintus. When Quintus was a young puppy, editor. When Quintus, I could feel my editor just looking at me. When Quintus was a puppy, we met this groomer. She already retired, but she really liked Quintus, so she came out of retirement and claimed Quintus as her sole client. And she also cut Quintus' hair very slowly because she liked to tell me stories. When you see the pattern. She came from a musical family. Her father was a conductor. Her two brothers were violinists, and she was trained as a singer. But then she got a master's degree in English literature and became a school teacher. She married, had children, had a divorce, and one day she realized that what would make her happy was to be a pet groomer. So she became a pet groomer. A few weeks ago, this groomer, she's 85 now. She's still very healthy. She saw in the news the deaths of my children. So she reached out to me and wrote a lovely email. In her email, she said, I remember those wonderful years when Quintus came for his due, and Vincent and James would tag along, each having a book in their hands. I too remember those wonderful years, the children laughing and chatting, and the groomer, she was old by then. She was very arthritic, and she groomed Quintus very slowly. And often she had to take a break because she really could not handle that work. She had to take a break, and she would sit there and she would just sing very loudly the old operas from her earlier career for all of us. So that's a lot of hair cutting stories. All water under bridge now. As it happens, tomorrow I have a hair appointment. And Quintus actually had a grooming appointment too tomorrow. So people tell us stories, and our stories live in their memory. And hair grows, life goes on. Thank you.